So tonight I want to speak a little bit about awareness, if that's possible, and about the process of freedom, of freeing the heart. In the middle-length sayings of the Buddha, which is if you're not familiar with that term, it's like there's three groups of talks. There's the shorter sayings, the short suttas, the middle-length suttas, and the long suttas. So in the middle-length ones, there's a line from one of those suttas where the Buddha's asked, so what is the goal of the holy life, of the spiritual life? And he said, well, the unencumbered freedom of the heart, that's the goal of this path. And it's always good to keep that goal in mind. Yeah. Freedom of the heart. What a beautiful thing. So that path then, towards that, which is part of this, what we're here for tonight, it's called the Eightfold Noble Path. So one of the aspects of that is samadhi or samadhi, however you want to pronounce it. And that is about a quality of awareness. D, the D-H-I at the end of that word, samadhi, is a quality of awareness there. So we're invited to, as we go into meditation, refine this awareness that we have inside, so we're getting down through the levels, come back through the body, through the mind, through the emotions, and we'll come back to these things of perception. We see where we perceive things, where the mind grabs things and it knows, there's a knowing mind, and then we go back a little bit further to actually see and know that knowing mind, know the knowing, be the knowing, the same. And then there's, there's this sense of buddhi, it's also called. There's this place where we're seeing just the arising and falling of sensation, the rising and falling of thoughts and perceptions and consciousness. This quality of D. And so it's mentioned a lot in the teachings for important reasons. So there's that level of awareness, but then of course we have the everyday level of things as well. The one that drives the car, that part of us that drives the car, that sort of awareness. The part of awareness that is listening right now to this talk, or the awareness that combs your hair in the morning, or shaves, or whatever else you need to do for the day. That sense of presenting ourselves to the awareness. So there's like everyday awareness, and there's other that they refer to as like an absolute awareness of things that are a process. And this awareness really is this process. So when I'm saying that is that you can't just say there is awareness or I am aware and just leave it like that. Because very quickly other old patterns of the mind come in to then take us out of that awareness. Yeah. So it's not a destination that we get to and then that's it, everything's fine. We can have the insights into that, but then very quickly and easily be drawn out of that into our habitual ways of thinking and relating and doing things in the world. So this awakened mind or heart, this goal of the Eightfold Path, when we talk about the path, we're stepping into this process of life. That's what this path is about, this path of awareness. Yeah. So this liberated heart is a process and involves a few things, and it's always in flux, it's always changing. So if we take all the the bigger picture of all the things that that might include, you might say that on one level there's awareness. There's awareness of things. There's awareness of sound, of seeing, of smelling, of tasting, of touch. There's the sense world. There's awareness of all those things. Another level is the experience of, say, our personality, the different parts of ourselves that come up in life. There's a part of us that does work or does study, or part of us that might be a son or a daughter or whatever gender you are. Or there's awareness of ourselves in relationship. We might know that there's different parts of ourselves come up in all of these things, right? Different aspects of ourselves. Like, for instance, the lover's not appropriate to come up with mum and dad generally, right? It's not the way it goes. But in other aspects, it is. So there's like a wisdom that comes in regards to these different parts of ourself. And that wisdom, that awareness that comes there, you might call it the aware ego. The everyday ego, that's the one that's operating on automatic. That's conditioned to do things in a certain way. But then there's other parts of ourselves as we come into a meditation that we're developing. It's often known as wisdom in this tradition, panya. So we're developing this quality. Sometimes I like this term aware ego because it's then talking about another process that's happening. Yeah? And as we so in day-to-day life then, this wisdom, as we meditate, as we get to know ourselves better, as we get to know the ways that we do life better, this aware ego strengthens, gets stronger, and as it gets stronger, then we're able to meet those habitual patterns of the mind a little better. A little bit better each time. It's like we're lifting weights. We just get a bit better at it. So, and as that happens, then transformation starts to occur. But for that to occur, like in the meditation we're talking about, and these are sort of certain precision there about how we relate to everything that's inside, for instance, or our partner, or our family. A precision, and it's called skill in the Dharma language. We're building skill. All right. So the aware ego, then, this term, it grows in relation to experience, the experience of life. Okay? And that's the difference when that starts being there, the difference from being able to then choose between something that's happening or things that are happening, or running with the same old pattern of mind. Following me? Kind of. All right. So the thing with, you might say, the aware ego then, I just want to talk about some things about how we know we have it, how we know we don't have it. So one way that we don't have it oftentimes is that if we do think we have it, usually we don't have it because we're thinking about it. Right? It's an experience, it's something that's happening. So when we get to really honestly look at our habits and the energy that's locked up in these habits of relating, of thinking, of speaking, that the energy in those starts to become available to us in a different way. And one of those ways that we'll know that is through choice. It doesn't always mean that the old pattern will go away immediately. But when it comes up, as the aware ego grows, we'll find that we have a little bit more choice about how we are with it. One of the things I know for myself is when, as I was starting to go into learning therapy more, because I had to do it myself to learn it, that I was starting to see, well, after all these years of meditation, there was actually a lot of anxiety inside. And as I looked at it closer, well, it was actually a bit closer to terror, quite frankly. And it was really hard to be with. Like I'd been operating fine at a certain level, but as I opened up, then I was like, there's a bit going, wanting to hang off for dear life. And it was very overwhelming for a start. Until a part of me then, as the awareness grew, could go, hang on, this hasn't killed me yet. Why don't I actually just look at it? In fact, I used that line with someone today, I think it was, but it's sort of like the difference between just running on automatic and really looking at what is going on here. And as we start to really look at what's going on here, that aware ego or wisdom starts to get strengthened. We start to trust ourselves a lot more, trust our ability to face our experience, whether that's inside or outside, and it builds confidence. As suggested in that meditation, this confidence grows because you know that there's an ability, whatever's here, I can stay with it. Even when the mind's jumping around everywhere, we know the breath is there. And that's why the instruction to sort of know it's there and just, in a way, reach for it, look for it. Just have that patience to know that it's there. And then as we locate it, then part of the mind can go, oh yeah, the mind's a bit crazy at the moment, but the breath is there. I can sort of, no lock onto is right word, but rest with it. So as the aware ego grows, then, as wisdom grows, another way it might show itself, so I mentioned anxiety, it's one way. But another way might be to notice how the body, for instance, tightens at certain times. Or maybe I feel my impatience growing with people. Right? And if I look at that a little closer, possibly could see that maybe an inner perfectionist is coming online. Right? One that has, things have to be done in a certain way. Or we're suggesting that other people should do things in a certain way. A controlling sort of energy. So if the aware ego is strong enough, then we can start to again get a sense of possibility that maybe this is not just the only way that this person needs to do it, or that I need to do it. Give space. Starts to give space. And with that, this sense of then the heart also starts to get a little space. And we give other people the gift of that when we do that. Of course, that then flows through to our relationships. It goes through everything. So the message really is that the more that we know about these habits of mind, of thinking, of doing things, perhaps the way we might take too much responsibility for things, or we avoid responsibility. We become an overly controlling person or an under-functioning person. We might sort of undermine ourselves or just always push ourselves forward for things. Whatever it is, there's so many different ways that we flip from one side to the other, the opposites, Whatever that is, this awareness can rest in the middle of those things. I don't have the clock. Where's that? I keep an eye on that. Here it is. Found it. One thing that can happen as we start to inquire about our inner world is that we can see that sometimes little small innocuous things we seem to think are kind of small. If we look closer, it's like when we're gardening. We pull up this little plant, but underneath there's this huge mass of roots and things underneath. Has anyone ever tried pulling up an agapantha here? Yes. It's like that. I'm in the midst of it right now. So that's why I'm using it. A friend's a landscaper, and he said gardeners can be divided into those who have pulled up agapantha and those who have not. And I'm really starting to understand why now. It is a mat of roots there. Sometimes exactly the mind is like that too. Like just a small way of saying things that we realize, well, perhaps we're minimizing our experience. But what is this actually is a way of managing our experience. Minimizing it. The opposite would be trying to sort of overinflate it. Oh, it's all so dramatic. So we're minimizing things. And then we look underneath, oh wow, what's there? Perhaps a sense of low self-worth. Perhaps a sense of I just don't feel so good about myself. And then really, the gift then from that is that we can actually care for that. We can nurture that part of us. We can transform it if we know what's there. Get the right help if needed. And start to then change those beliefs and feelings and ideas we have about ourselves into something that's really healthy and nurturing for you. So this is the gift of awareness. And as that grows, then we start to build again awareness on a much deeper level. That aware ego is growing, and it's sort of starting to feel our whole perceptual experience inside in a much different way. I often use the metaphor of meditation as like this thing of sort of we're going through the layers of the onion. But that onion just never seems to finish, quite frankly, in my experience. It just keeps going. So this aware ego so it stands in relationship to all these different parts of ourselves. And what a gift that is. What a gift. Because it makes all the difference. So what isn't this? What the aware ego isn't? it's not a higher self. Really important. It's not a higher self. Because we were saying it was a higher self, well, they have to be a low one as well, right? We're living in the world of duality. It's not that. So it's also not a sense of like your most extraordinary self, as some life coaches would have it. It's not that either. Because then, again, you would have to then have some relationship to the ordinary. And with either one of those would have to be like you're elevating yourself in some way in regards to some other experience or other people having another experience. I think that's called conceit. So it's not those sorts of things. This is the awareness that embraces the opposites of those things. That would embrace that sense of a sort of higher self, whatever that might be, or the ordinary self. It's aware of those things, and it's able to sit in relationship to those things. Wisdom sits in relationships to those things. Buddha called it the middle way. Not this side, or that side. We're not getting caught in this one or that one. One way to sort of know in a way that it's there, but it's that it does not judge. It's part of us does not judge. It's just present to these things. So one way to see then inside of us, if it's functional, if it's happening, is to see, well, how much are we judging ourselves? What's not acceptable? What is acceptable? What am I proud of or ashamed of? What I try to flout or hide, shame or pride? This is a really simple way to start seeing, well, where is it there? Can there be this sense of, oh yeah, this is this body, this is the mind, this is how it is right now. I'll say it's not that easy sometimes. So it's important to point out then this wisdom that grows with this is not awareness. Awareness really is just the witness. Just aware of things. Yeah, it informs this other part of us, but it's not the same thing. Okay. So oftentimes in some circles it's taught that awareness is enough. So why can't there just be awareness? But you can think of it like this, is that, well, who drives the car? At the end of a retreat, for instance, who drives the car? Awareness is just taking things in, just aware of what's happening. It's not going to be enough, is it? Because the car doesn't drive by itself. We have to have someone on board there to drive it. We need that. Who decides where to shop? Who decides what friends to hang out with? So we need that. We need that awareness to do that. So this awareness, or the traditional opposites in the teachings talk about gain and loss, status, disgrace. There's lots of ways of saying this. Praise and blame, or pleasure and pain. These are the opposites, the worldly conditions are sometimes spoken about. And so I was thinking about this afternoon and listening to someone talk about this a little bit. I really loved how they spoke about, saying in our culture there's a glorification of action. So a person can be really admired who can make quick decisions, They're decisive. They make things happen. And he compared it to like an old Western on the TV where it's like those who can draw the fastest and shoot the quickest, they're the winners. It's like thinking like that. And you get caught into that glorification. So it's also then like who can work the fastest and longest is the winner. Yeah. So if we're quick to action, decisive, you can feel that there's like a glorification of that in our culture. Yeah. And it's fine to have those things, but they're not necessarily the things that make our relationships good. They're not the things that make our relationships solid or happy, or that make ourselves happy. There's a sense of accomplishment, of course, that can come from that. But it's really separate from, it's really a different paradigm from what we're talking about here. It's creation of this awareness that can accept both of those sides of things. So just to finish then, relating back to Dharma practice here, what we practice is Vipassana. We don't call it that so much, we call it insight meditation, but it's Vipassana. It's the original teachings. And what I encourage you to explore is the difference between Vipassana as a teaching, Vipassana as a method, and Vipassana as an experience inside. So what I've been doing is giving you Vipassana as a teaching here. What's in here? We're getting it in here, we're accepting it this way, right? And the meditation, we might be sort of getting there a bit closer to Vipassana as an experience. But really what we're talking about as Vipassana as an experience is that way that when we come in contact with what's happening inside, for instance, with the breath, the mind, the sensations, everything there that's in our inner world, Vipassana as an experience is that which changes our heart. It changes the way that we relate to the world. And it's this change of heart which is what we're about. It's the change of heart. And we can take in teachings all day long, but it's not until we start to really look inside and apply them and see at a deep level, what are they talking about here? So that's my encouragement to you, as always. These words are here just as a sort of encouragement. Check them out for yourself. Do they resonate? Do they make sense? Is there a way then we start talking about the impermanence of things, like I said, in the breath? Just noticing the breath. It's not permanent, it's always changing. That there's experience. If you take a photo of yourself last year, probably looks different to what you look like right now. You're changing. Every morning, sometimes I look in the mirror and it's like, oh, you look different today, right? We're changing all the time. So Vipassana is an experience. Please consider that and try it out for yourself. So that's all I have to offer for tonight. I hope this is helpful in some way. May your journey be safe on the way home. May you meet the Buddha with every step. Looking forward to seeing you on retreat. Okay, great.